the American political system is not designed to work with two ideologically homogenous, rigid parties. It is not. The last time we had something like this was the 1850s. That did not end well.
Yep.
The system is, the parties are meant to be not ideologically homogenous. They're meant to overlap. But now the most liberal Republican is more conservative than the most conservative Democrat in the House and in the Senate. We don't really know what this is going to look like and how forget about the election. We don't know what governing looks like over the long term in that kind of scenario.
I guess one of my questions for people that I would identify as traditional Republicans is, what happens when the time of Donald Trump passes?
Yeah.
What happens to the Republican Party then? Does the traditional GOP folks, do they reassert themselves? Or is this train left the station for a while?
I don't see how they could.
Yep.
And I think the biggest lesson from Trump is that the game that was played by Republican Party elites up through the 2012 election of sort of campaigning with sort of stuff for the base, but governing for elite donors. That was the basic thesis we got. It just doesn't work anymore. Now, Donald Trump had a secret that no one else is able to replicate, right? He is the greatest genius for earned media who has ever, whatever else you say about it, he's the greatest genius for earned media who's ever lived. And so he did not need donor support to run a campaign. And so maybe the next cycle around, but if you sort of look at the people who might conceivably be successors to Donald Trump, I don't see an establishment stool Republican who has any significant base in the party.
Go back to 1850.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pulling out Civics 101. Mr. Brunell beat it into me, and he's great. But, you're talking the tension of Kansas-Nebraska Act.
Yeah.
The pieces that Douglas and Lincoln picked up. Do you equate the analog to the 1850s to the discord that followed a decade later?
Oh, there's no, right. The discord that followed a decade later came directly from the sort of stasis and paralysis of the 1850s, because every major national institution that united the country collapsed. Right, the last thing holding the United States together in the late 1850s was the Democratic Party, and when it split between Southern and Northern Democrats, that was it. There was nothing tying the country together, and it took a civil war to resolve it. We are not there. I'm not predicting a civil war. I'm not saying we're not in that scenario, but it is the closest historical analog to what we have today.